This is a heads up weather for the Ozarks. We have some severe storm potential. I'm recording this around noon on Sunday. Take that into account. And there are two things about our severe weather threat that I really want you to know. And the first thing is that the tornado risk went up from the morning outlook to the late morning outlook. So that's something we're going to talk about. I also want to emphasize that severe weather that we do get will be atypical in the sense that, you usually expect thunderstorms to bubble up in the late afternoon, early evening. The ones I expect in the Ozarks will be overnight and maybe pretty robust. In other words, they won't necessarily fade away. They'll be overnight in their intensity and may maintain it or even increase it simply because of the way the energy in the upper levels is working out with this particular system. Let's take a look at some maps and I'll explain a little bit more. So, as always, the Storm Prediction Center issues forecasts for threats of severe weather. We should be very grateful we have this service in the United States. Anyway, on Sunday, this is the severe weather risk. This has been tweaked from the morning outlook a little bit. This area of level 2 out of all 5 has kind of been bulged out a little bit more to the east and covers a lot more, in fact, all of southwest Missouri and a pretty good chunk of northwest Arkansas as well. Sorry, I have a rogue Springfield down there in West Plains. But these are the cities that I just wanted you to know, just generally speaking, where these locations were here. And again, a lot of this is going to be later on this evening and overnight tonight. Same with this tornado risk. And this is now a 5% chance. And when I was looking at this morning, it pretty much cut off right around here somewhere. So they have greatly expanded this into central Missouri and have kind of added it right here. And I'll show you why in a minute. The tornado intensity, this is a product by the SPC that not only shows you the probability, that's the colors I just showed you, but what intensity tornado can reasonably be expected if one were to occur. And this kind of a striped area here is indicating, and they've just looked at the data over the years to try to make this assessment. So EF1s and EF0s are almost, that's almost 80% of the entire threat is bottled up in those weaker tornadoes. Again, a tornado is a tornado, right? But if we're looking at EF2s, that's about a 14% probability, a lot lower on anything stronger than that. I've only seen so far this year it go up to the intensity 2 level, like in Illinois tomorrow. So far, they have not pulled the trigger on that. And so let me get into a few more of these machine learning models, and we'll dive in a little bit more at what the data is showing. But the CSU outlook does have a tornado risk that does impact western Missouri and northwest Arkansas. It's a little more aggressive than SPC's was this morning, but now is a lot more in line. And in fact, SPC has now again extended that more into central Missouri. Hail threat pretty high in Kansas, north of a warm front that's expected today. And that warm front will play a role in central Missouri storms too, and I'll explain. And the wind threat's pretty much maximized right there in northeast Oklahoma, southeast Kansas. NATOcast, I forgot to update this for the 12Z data, but it does show once again that it wants to put a lot more tornado risk, 5%, the brown, in this area that doesn't get into southwest Missouri and northwest Arkansas. And that was as of the 0Z data. And that was 7 o'clock last night's information, not 7 a.m. this morning's. So again, if I were to look at that, I'm sure it would bolster that and probably even move the probabilities more north and northeast toward Kansas City, toward Columbia. So again, all this is not for this morning, not for this afternoon, not even for early evening. This is more after 10 o'clock or so, overnight hours. Let me show you some simulated radars. Again, you got to take these with a slight grain of salt, but I did want to show you that at 6 o'clock there might be some elevated thunderstorms going on here. These would be hail producers, and there's not a lot of them going on, but just be aware northwest of Springfield that early this evening there could be a storm or two. That continues upstate basically at 8 o'clock. Notice we got some activity going on out here. That's at 8 o'clock. So here's at 10 o'clock. So this is, I think, where the warm front will be by then. So storms that form along that could have a little bit of an enhancement toward tornado risk. Storms that are north of that are going to be hail producers. Where exactly that sets up is going to be critical to knowing who in this corridor right here, which includes areas north of Springfield, north of Bolivar, let's say, north of Nevada, might be under the gun. Notice there's some blossoming activity here and even off screen. Now, if we go to midnight, this is still very much ongoing north of Springfield, and these are, again, getting a little more organized. And as I said, just because it's midnight doesn't mean everything is settling down. At 2 a.m., these are still very robust. By the way, these little gray areas here are indicating mid-level rotation in the storm. So in other words, supercells. Now, supercells produce, damaging wind, large hail, and possibly tornadoes. All three are lumped into that category. So when you see a supercell, it means one or two or all three of those are possible. This is developing into a little bit more of a linear mode. So if a tornado were to pop out of this, it would be one of those that's embedded in a line segment. Same with this activity up here to the north of Clinton. And then this stuff here from Bartlesville northward to around Parsons is definitely something worth watching. In fact, I've looked at some other model data to suggest this holds together as it approaches Joplin in the wee hours in the morning. So that's, again, it's not the kind of thing that necessarily fades, because at the jet stream level, the upper level winds are really overtaking this area, our area, overnight tonight, and if anything, enhancing the low-level wind profiles and everything that a tornado would need to form. So just wanted to keep you informed of that. So this is one of those nights where it's kind of frustrating because evening is bad enough, right? But overnight threats, yeah, those are not fun at all. I do want to show you tomorrow, there is a possibility of severe weather east of Springfield. So we are in Springfield kind of straddled between the level 1 and level 2 here, with the higher probability certainly from Rolla and West Plains on eastward, and that may be relatively early in the day, unlike the activity I was just talking about for tonight. And the tornado outlook is basically 2 to 5%, with the 5% risk kicking in here, again, along that line from West Plains to Rolla and points east. And this gets really crazy if you were to extend that map up into Illinois, Iowa, even the Boot Heel down into parts of northeast Arkansas. Have a higher tornado risk both in probability and also in intensity. But thankfully, it looks like we are missing most of that force. And that that should say, cross that out. That should be Monday. So sorry. I get going on these things, and I don't always change all the labels. That is a Monday risk. And the previous slide may have had that right. I don't know. Anyway, so those are the points I wanted you to know about severe weather in the Ozarks over the next 24 hours.